My name is Rifka Glatz. I am a survivor of the Holocaust. I was born in Debrecen, Hungary, in the city of Debrecen. Until the Holocaust began, at first I grew up in Debrecen. Then once anti-Semitism was ripe in Hungary, my father and mother had a bakery that they had to close. And my father's oldest brother lived in a city called Kolozsvár at the time. Today it's Cluj. It was Hungary before the war, and after the war it went back to Romania. And my parents and my brother and I moved to Kolozsvár. And we lived in attached homes, very modest. And my brother went to a Jewish day school, and I went in the synagogue to kindergarten. And that's all the education that I got in Hungary. I must have been about 6 years old. I can't describe it any more than I grew up in a very loving family, very large family. My father was one of 13 children. My mother was one of 8 children. I had 2 sets of wonderful grandparents. And you know, we didn't live very far away from them. So even to this day, I have fond memories of visiting them in their homes. He only worked in a factory. That's all, just to make a little bit of a living. We lived a very modest life. My brother went to a Jewish day school because kids were not allowed anymore in public schools. And they wore uniforms. And in and out of school, they were harassed with anti-Semitism and cursed. We had to wear the Jewish star. I remember my mother not allowing me to get out of the gate of the house. And my brother made himself out of a piece of wood, a handle, and attached to it a rope. And my father saw this. He said, "What is this?" He said, when we go to school and they are cursing us and all that, I guard myself with it. No, not yet, no. The ghetto came in late 45, you know, in the summer of 45. And we were taken to a ghetto in Kolozsvár where we lived. It was a brickyard factory. They gathered the Jews of Kolozsvár and put us in this courtyard. And I remember my mother prepared a little knapsack for all of us with the bare essential, change of clothes, and she told my brother, if I'm not home and they come for us, layer her clothes on Rifka. And my brother tried to dress me, and I was complaining it was summertime, it was warm. Why do I have to wear more clothes, you know? Whatever was in it, my mother just prepared that we have eating utensils that are not breakable, and a change of clothes, and a little towel, and a little bar of soap. That was it. They came for us, they put us on a truck, and we were taken to this brickyard factory. From the brickyard factory, we were there for a few weeks, and we were taken from the brickyard factory to Budapest. My father was taken into forced labor camp. We saw him one time in Budapest. He came to see us. His group of Jews was there, allowed him for a brief visit, and that was the last time we saw him. they killed him in forced labor camp. When he collapsed from lack of food and hard work. And how do we know? One of his brother-in-laws was with him. He was married to my father's sister. When the war was over, he survived. He came back to find that his wife and 2 daughters perished in Auschwitz. In 2 months' time, they managed to gather 500,000 Jews from Hungary out of 800,000 and transport them to Auschwitz, from which they never returned. My mother, as I was growing up, we had tiny, like this size pictures, photos. It's almost like stamps, tiny little photos of the family that she took and put in an envelope and took it with us. But as I was getting married at the age of 19 and a half, the day of my wedding, my mother came to me and said, "Rifka, I want to give you something from our house in Hungary." And I looked at her like, "What could you have brought from Hungary?" She said, "When I knew they'll come for us, I took the mezuzah off the door, I left the casing there, and I sewed the parchment into the lining of my coat. And it was with us in Bergen-Belsen, which after Budapest, they took us to Bergen-Belsen. And it came to Israel with us. And she never said a word. They put us in a cattle car where no seats, no windows, a small window for the cattle to have some air. And with this train, they brought us to Bergen-Belsen. When we got to Bergen-Belsen, they separated the men and boys to one side of the camp and the women and daughters to the other side. I stayed with my mother. My brother was my uncle, one of the uncles, who lived in Kolozsvár with us, because we were taken all from the same city, was my father's oldest brother. He was with us also, with his son. So my uncle and his son and my brother were on the men's side. And we were in Bergen-Belsen. They didn't make us work. Food came once a day. We were counted. We had to stand in line, and we were counted every day to make sure that nobody escaped. Where could we have escaped to? All barbed wires around you. Not only did they do this, at night when they put you in the barracks to sleep, they took a broom and they swept the ground to make sure that no footsteps are shown on the land, so that nobody escapes from the barracks out. It was horrendous. I don't even remember, to be very honest with you. It was that some bread, some potatoes, something very minimal, very minimal. That was the case. I will never forget, the bathrooms were toilets outside in the courtyard, dug out into the ground. No separation between one toilet to the next, no doors, right in the open. Just like we are sitting here, you would sit on the toilet. And one of the ladies she was crying. And my mother said, "Why are you crying?" She said, I leaned down and my glasses fell into the toilet. They tried to gather us and teach us about something, but nobody could pay attention. No, no. There were other children, but I was attached to my mother. I turned 7 years old in Bergen-Belsen. Around December of 45, Kastner, who was a Jew, who negotiated with the Nazis to try to save this group of 1,600 and some odd Jews, children and adults, primarily women and older men, because the younger men were taken to forced labor camp. Kastner dealt with the Nazis, begging them to allow this group of Jews to be saved and prove to the world that they're not killing everybody. And he said, world Jewry is going to pay you. World Jewry is going to provide you with trucks. It was a bluff, you know. And they finally bought it and released us from Bergen-Belsen. And we arrived. He also dealt with the Swiss ambassador to Hungary. And he begged the Swiss ambassador to release us. With cattle cars, all the way to the border of Switzerland. Then we were taken off the cattle cars and got into a Swiss train and became like human beings to the border of Switzerland, and the Red Cross was expecting us and waiting for us and serving us with food and I think some toys for the children, you know, welcoming us to Switzerland. So in Switzerland we went from hell to heaven, and the British wouldn't allow us into Palestine. So it took quite a while. We finally arrived in Israel by boat. They allowed us in. We traveled by train to Italy, and in Italy we got on a ship, and we came to Palestine.
Do you mind if I ask you a couple more questions
Sure.
about Switzerland?
Sure.
So you're in this beautiful hotel. Do you have any recollection of activities that they did for you? Did they do
Yes,
school?
the children were taken to the mountains to learn, to study. And I meet with some of these children who are adults like me today, including my brother. And I said, what did we learn? What language did we learn? None of us can remember. It's amazing. I think we were all so occupied of what will happen. Will we go home? Won't we go home? What's going to be? Where is our father? Where are all the cousins? You know, there were so many questions on everybody's mind. Nobody can remember what we learned and in what language we learned. It was calm. They were so nice to us, you know, they were well taken care of. And when they gave us the permit to enter Palestine, you know, we gathered together and we were on a ship together, and we arrived in Haifa, in Israel. And what the Israelis could do for us was really very gracious. And the children were sent to a kibbutz, to several kibbutzim. I was sent to a kibbutz with a group of kids that were more or less my age. I just turned 7 in Bergen-Belsen, and I was going to start first grade. I was almost 8 years old. okay, 7.5, 8 years old, when I started first grade, in a language that I did not speak. I didn't speak Hebrew, and nobody in the kibbutz spoke Hungarian. So it wasn't exactly the easiest thing in the world. You know, it was different. But he went to the kibbutz for 3 years, and I was in a different kibbutz for 3 years. And my mother started working as a cook for newcomers to Israel, you know, who were in camps. So my mother was a very good cook, and she was working as a cook for them and earning a living. And I saw my mother twice a year. Once she came to visit me, and once I came to Haifa. Yes, because it was very nicely arranged. Each child that did not have a parent in the kibbutz was assigned to a family. But you have to understand, in those days in the kibbutz, the adults had a room. The bathroom was on the outside. The showers were, you know, shared showers between everybody. The children did not stay with their parents. The children were in children's homes. Everybody had a job in the kibbutz. Some were chefs, some were nurses, some were farmers, you know, did whatever. Everybody had a job. And they took very good care of us. Unless we had a vacation together at the same time. But, you know, we did not. My mother had nowhere to put us. And I didn't see my brother. But 3 years later, my mother came to the kibbutz to take me home. She got married, remarried. And she married a Hungarian Jew who lost his wife and 2 daughters in the war. I moved in with, they had this tiny little apartment, and I moved in with them. It was wonderful. I went to school, I had lots of friends, and I enjoyed. I was in Israel until I got married at 19 and a half. I married my husband, who, interestingly enough, his parents were also Hungarian. I was 19 and a half years old, and a year later we were in New York. My husband wanted to study aeronautical engineering, and that was the purpose for which we came to the United States. We came to New York. The first year we got a job as Hebrew school teachers in Schenectady, New York. We moved to Quincy, Massachusetts, and we were there for 6 years teaching Hebrew school. And my husband went to Boston University and then to MIT, and he got his degree in aeronautical engineering. I had a high school education in teacher seminary, basically. And with this teacher certificate, we were able to teach. And in the summer times, we worked in Jewish summer camps, Hebrew-speaking summer camps. My husband got a job as an aeronautical engineer in Los Angeles. They moved us, and we just rented a place for a very short, immediately applied for adoption, and in a matter of a few months, 6 months, we had a beautiful baby boy. And 4 years later, we had a beautiful baby girl. So we have 2 beautiful kids. Six years. Then my husband's job moved us back to Maryland. Yes, my son is married, but he and his wife did not want to have any children, so they don't have any kids. And my daughter is married and she has 3 beautiful kids. It's very important to talk about it because people have to know that such an unbelievable atrocities happened, that we cannot allow that to happen again. We really cannot. And if we don't talk about it and we don't tell them the story, look, there are still a few of us who are still alive. Okay, I was a child when the war started. Now I'm 85 years old. One doesn't know how many more years we have left. And if we don't make people aware of the horrors that were done to us and the injustice that was done to us, it will repeat itself. I see when I read in the paper, look, I'm not too much out in society here, but you hear about anti-Semitism. You hear about what's going on. My grandson, Alex, first year at Tufts University, wrote a very big article about anti-Semitism. I really gave him a lot of honors for doing that, because here you are, first year of college, and he dared speak up. And I respect it in a big way. And I know that the kids are very aware of it, and we need to talk about it. We need to learn to respect each other. We need to learn to like each other, or to allow us to live in peace. And I always say that really in Israel we learned how to love. In spite of the wars, in spite of everything else, they never taught us to hate. We had to protect each other, but we need to learn to respect. And the hatred has to stop, because it really is outrageous. There is no reason for it.